And I remember talking to my dad and saying like, hey, I think I want to do Taste Buds Kitchen. I want to do this full time. He's like, you want to do what? We rented restaurants. So in the heart of the recession, a lot of restaurants weren't open for lunch. They were just happy to fill dinner. And so I would literally walk the streets of New York knocking on their windows and saying, hey, can I use your space?
You had started your business while you were still working, and then you decided to leave in the heart of the recession. And you said, when I watched your video, you said you were working in finance. So I would imagine Harvard finance, like you probably had a pretty good job, right?
I did. Yes. I had a great job. I had great take home income. I was able, I was 26, single, living in the heart of New York City. Life was good. I definitely remember the conversation because I worked for Bear Stearns. Bear Stearns tanked over a weekend in 2008, if you remember, and JP Morgan bought us. So I was in a position to go over to JP Morgan as kind of part of the takeover that they had in place. And I started Taste Buds Kitchen maybe 8 months before this. And I remember talking to my dad and saying like, hey, I think I want to do Taste Buds Kitchen. I want to do this full time. He's like, you want to do what? I'm like, yes, and my colleagues were saying the same thing. He's like, you want to leave your great job, like that you've worked so hard for, right? Your great insurance plan and, paid vacation, and life is pretty good for a 26-year-old single person. I was like, yes, I want to do this. This is like my opportunity to do it. I see this window. And so I basically raised my hand and said, will you lay me off as part of this transition? Because people were going to get laid off anyway. I just wasn't in that group. And I called my boss. He's like, are you sure? Because literally the list is getting sent over as we speak. And I was like, yes, I'm going to do it. I'm going to take this chance. Thankfully it paid off, but it was hard going in the beginning. I had to kind of give up what I was used to and dive in and figure out how I was going to pay my rent. Charge forward.
And so where was the business at that point when you left? I mean, were you doing hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue and sales, or where was it at?
Great question. So I think the first year we probably broke 100,000, maybe the first year.
And you were still working during that time?
Yes, so I started in September. So when I count my first year was really the next calendar year, all of 2008. I don't even think I counted in 2007, right? Because I'm doing a couple classes here and there. Like, I don't even think I had a business entity at that time, if I remember back that far. But when I decided to do it full time, I was, setting up the LLC, doing all of those things that you needed to do. So at that point, we did not have a facility. We rented restaurants. So in the heart of the recession, a lot of restaurants weren't open for lunch. They were just happy to fill dinner. And so I would literally walk the streets of New York knocking on their windows and saying, hey, can I use your space? So we had a couple restaurants we worked with. I would do birthday parties, classes. We weren't really doing adults at that point because, again, this is when it was my hobby. But we were using restaurants for lunch for our classes and parties.
And were they supplying the food? You were buying the food? How did that work?
I did everything. So I would give them $100. Most cases, I was like, this is what I can afford. I can pay you $100 to use your facility. They're like, great, here's the key. So I was letting myself in. I was bringing with me everything that I needed. I was using their ovens, of course, but I would bring, because it was always we're very intentional with the tools that we use. And that was that way from the beginning. So for the little kids, we have little measuring cups, and we have little rolling pins and smaller bowls. So I had this whole business in boxes. Me and my crew would literally bring these huge Tupperware boxes in. I was even known to carry in a stand mixer. So I would take over, set it all up, clean it all up, and then we were out by the time they had dinner.
If you enjoyed this short clip from the podcast, you can check out another short clip right here. Or if you want to watch the full episode of this podcast, you can watch that here. And remember, knowledge is not power. It's applied knowledge that's power. Take care. Have a great rest of your day.